All right, hey everybody, this is Joel, and we are here this evening talking about the Rise of the Europan project. I believe probably the only people who will ever watch this video are folks who are involved in the project, but just so we've made it official, we have Damien Rocha with us, we have Eugene Kelly with us, we have Don Van Osdal, and we have Kitty Sarkozy. So four of the six authors participating in the project are here, and that's fabulous. I guess I should do a little bit of description. Oh, it's weird. When I rock my desk, you guys' images don't move. I had this strange moment of vertigo. Uh, I suppose I should do just a moment of introduction. We've had one just kind of exciting thing happen in the project this morning, and I didn't know it was going to happen, but it happened, so I'll talk about it. I want to mention, just for folks that don't know it, Tracy's internet blew up completely, and she's not expected to be online till tomorrow. Her provider pushed out an update that scrambled a bunch of the older modems, and so there are literally hundreds or thousands, I don't know how big the catastrophe is, of dead modems in Kentucky today, and she won't be joining us. So the brilliance of technology. The thing that happened today, Dan Hunt, I don't know, I think probably most of you have heard the name. He's the author of Eclipsing of Cyrus B, or Cyrus C, which will be coming out on iUniverse here in a couple of weeks. He wrote some of the early short stories. He wrote Lucky Man and Revenge, which were a couple of the sort of foundational stories. I approached him when I was going to launch this project and asked him if he was interested in participating, and he said he might edit, but he wasn't going to submit a story. Well, he submitted a story this morning. It just showed up in my email at 5:30 this morning, 5:03 this morning. I was like, "Yeah, Dan, hey!" And it's an awesome story. And so as we're kind of going around today and talking about where we are, I'll introduce it. Maybe I should just go ahead and do that now. Would you guys like me to just go ahead and talk about it a little bit right now?
Yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
the story that he wrote is this awesome story about this guy. We don't know who he is. He wrote it in this very noir fashion. It's absolutely film noir with the tough guy and the dame, and he calls the girl babe all the time. I mean, it's just classic noir, right? But this guy goes into this beat up, rundown bar and sits down to have a drink. He's got this mutilated hand that he keeps in his pocket because it just hangs around limp. And he's kind of a tough old warhorse. And this woman who is clearly an assassin there to assassinate some people comes in, and they know each other, of course, and have known each other for years. She works for Cirque Corp. It takes a long time even to figure out that it's in the primer. You spend a long time going, Dan, did you get lost? Is this the 1950s? You're kind of losing me. But slowly we kind of pick up that there's technology involved that wouldn't exist in the normal world, and she does definitely work for Cirque Corp. And she thinks that he's betrayed her and is working for the Europan now. And we really don't know what's going on, but clearly some people are going to die. Well, this guy shows up who's a doctor, and I won't go through the whole saga, but he ends up dead, and the bartender ends up dead because the chick just starts killing people. And right at the climax of the story, when we think that the assassin is also going to kill our main character, he takes out his hand, and it's a tentacle. And it's got fangs and claws and suckers on it, and he wraps it around her and poisons her with his Europan-built tentacle arm. And what has happened is that the doctor stole all of the military and technological plans for spacecraft and naval equipment from Cirque Corp, and has delivered it to this guy to give to the Europan ahead of the attack. And the Cirque Corp found out that it was happening and sent the female assassin in, and what we've just watched is that deal go down badly. So it's an exciting little story. If you've ever read any of Dan's stuff, he writes this kind of I don't want to say thick because I write very light narrative, but he writes this kind of strong prose with good, strong environments. It's clearly noir. He made a decision to write noir, and it reads like noir, and I really enjoyed it. It's about 5,500 words. I immediately edited it and sent it back to him because that's what I do. But it's an exciting addition, and I think in terms of the kind of the layout of the stories that we were talking about, it's the first in time, but it's probably not the first we tell. You know, I think that we get involved in Damien's story of the rise of the beast, and maybe Don's story, or Damien's story of the Space Marines, which I really enjoyed that sample. Damien, thank you very much for that. That was a lot of fun. And then sort of somewhere in there go, oh, and by the way, the Europan's been planning this forever, right? So I'm not sure exactly how that will work, but it was an exciting addition. It was a very different style than any of you are writing, and I really liked it. So that's what I had to add. So uh, why don't you all talk to me? Where are you? How are things going? This conversation is meant to be me supporting you guys and helping put you together and get the resources behind you that you need. So tell me what's going on. How is everybody?
Pretty good.
Well, that was dramatic. Damien, we have not heard you speak before. Why don't you step up and let us know a little bit about your story and what's going on?
Okay. Am I coming through all right? You guys hear me?
That sounds great to me. Yeah,
Okay, good. Just checking.
not
This is literally the first time I've used this thing, so just making sure.
very good.
Uh, yeah, so my story is the Battle of Europa, and basically trying to get together some stuff. I think once we finish this up, I'm going to email everyone. I'm trying to put together a couple things, like some notes, and I found an image online. It was taken from pieces of satellite data, images of Europa, and it's basically like a composite map. And so I'm using that to sort of map out important locations in my story, and I'm going to get that together and send it to everybody. So when I'm talking about these locations, people will have some idea of what the hell I'm talking about.
Awesome, awesome.
Aside from that, I haven't gotten a lot further in writing the actual story because I want to make sure that I have all the details right in my head. That way, when I write it out, I'm not just floundering my way through it. But I think if I can put together that extra stuff, the notes and all that, then maybe that'll give you some idea of where my story fits in with a bigger picture of what we're trying to do.
Right on, right on. And I just want to add, I read Damien's story, and it was very much a soldiers in combat story. For those of you who've read Dan, it really dovetailed very well with the sort of writing that Dan does. Have you read some of Dan's work, Damien?
No, I actually haven't. I was going
Oh,
to ask you
wow.
about that. I was wondering where I might find some of it because I'd be
You know,
curious to read it.
I'm going to make sure, I'm going to make a note right here that says Damien opening. The Eclipsing of Cyrus C is not out yet, and so I'm not as at liberty to share it around. But I'm going to make sure the first couple thousand words of that make it over to you, because you're going to find that you're writing right in his style. Or maybe, I think Threshold I already have rights to. Maybe I'll just send you the whole of Threshold. Um,
Yeah, that would
uh,
be great. Whatever you can send me, that would be awesome.
that because Threshold is specifically the Geist Marines who you're dealing with, and you are absolutely telling Dan Hunt Geist Marine consistent story. It's totally plausible that you guys are describing the same military organizations. The other thing that you were doing that I really enjoyed just in the sample, and so I just want to mention it sort of as positive feedback, is you get into a combat sequence and people are sort of dying around you, and you immediately started flagging people that will be significant characters to us later, right? There were the three of them, and they were distinct, and she turned around and immediately knew who the three of them were, without having to look at dog tags or anything, because she's like, of course, these are the three guys that are going to be causing me grief. And you very quickly labeled for us who it is that we need to pay attention to and who it is we're going to follow through your story. And I like that. I thought the narrative was nice, and I felt well mapped, if that makes sense. When you think about construction of a story, you map yourself out and you make sure that your reader knows where you are. And I felt very well oriented getting into that story. I felt like I could pick up the next piece and immediately know where you had gone from where I had read. So positive feedback on that. Don, you're the next one on my screen. Why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on with your story?
Well, I haven't got a whole lot done with the fourth going on, but I did actually get started on it. I'm only like on the first page after the
Sure.
layout, but it's gone going good, and I'm working on trying to develop the mother a little bit more.
All right. All right.
Um, I think everyone knows I'm doing the trigger event, so.
Right on. And Don, I want to make sure that I'm available to you as you go forward. If you want to talk about whatever it is that's challenging you in your story, I'm home a lot during the day and I'm home a lot during the evening. So anytime that you wanted to sort of sit down and go, well, I'm working on this and it's kind of frustrating me, or I'm thinking about this about my pacing, or narrative voice development, or wherever you find yourself uh, um, challenged with that project, feel free to grab me because I'm totally here to support you. All right.
All right, sounds great.
Awesome. All right, Eugene.
Okay. Well, as I told Joel earlier, I've been a little bit behind because I'm grading a lot of papers for class, but that will probably only last for another week or two, and then I'll really be able to pick up with my writing. And I'm working on the Rise of Europan, and I'm not quite sure where everyone else is in terms of what their how their what their perspective is basically. But for me personally, I'm taking the idea that the Europan is justified in what it's doing, but the way it does it is not very nice. And that it was kind of perfect that sort of at the noir about the guy with the tentacle and the teeth and all that. That's
Mm-hmm.
very much in line with what I have.
Right.
The Europan is the way it uses is that it uses these in order to basically take back the moon. It uses these very bizarre, very nasty bioweapon monsters with sort of teeth all over the place and tentacles and poison, and it actually ends up kind of transforming the planet into sort of something of like a living creature in and of itself. But it's very much this idea of kind of this kind of crawling ooze of almost like monstrous cancer that comes up, as well as there are other things like the idea. There's a type of organisms called siphonophori. It's the same type of species that Portuguese man of war belong to, which basically they're not jellyfish, but they're highly specialized colonies of cells all linked together, and they can be obviously very dangerous. So going around that concept, and then sort of taking that all together and sort of the Europan basically oozing out from the core and basically retaking the planet. And there'll be a lot of, even though it'll all take place on Europa, I'm having the idea that the Europan is kind of a not a deity, but has been around for eons and eons, so it understands a lot of the secrets of the universe. So there'll be tiny references to kind of other, maybe almost just other beings in the universe, other dimensions almost. And so it'll be all this really, it's become more stream of consciousness. There'll be a narrative, but it'll be more, as I say, it'll be more stream of consciousness, more kind of the vibe of the event. So that's what I am with the Europan. In terms of my other story, Joel knows about this. I'm creating sort of a story that takes place in the dark, which is where a group of humans living in the core. They live on these very poisoned industrial worlds. They're kind of forced to make products and spaceships for other powers. But at one point, this very charismatic leader comes along, manages to unite them all. They build this huge space fleet, and they go out and they conquer a chunk of the galaxy. They actually get all the way to Earth. And they create this huge empire that lasts for a few hundred years before the Scourge come back, and then all these other weird monsters come in. For a while, I'm going to have the dark be basically sort of like a dead space environment where it's just basically monsters and rust, and then it's just getting more and more weird until finally something somehow comes along and wipes it all out. But in terms of the story I'm focusing on right now is the rise of this kind of almost I'd say fascist human empire during the dark.
Awesome, wonderful stuff. And going back to this kind of Europan able to reach out sort of into the dark, we have established that the same technology that the humans use to frame through space, the ripples that are actually the structure of space that move faster than the speed of light, are also a method of communication. The Ile Solitaire, which are the flying space whales, use it. And so the Europan has had contact through Tracy's story with other species. It's been sending its genetic material out into local space, or whatever its equivalent of genetic material, and has actually colonized other planets. And once it gets off of Europa, it's going to go rescue some of its other planets. The final story in this book will be Tracy's story that happens on another planet when the Europan is about to arrive, and one of the humans can actually hear its communications with the local plant and animal life. So there is a deeper way to communicate in the universe that humans have no idea of, and Tracy's addressing it. Your story addresses it, Eugene, and I think, Don, that you sort of decided that your story will not, because you're going to use the I don't know what you want to call it. Yeah, the tactile communication rather than the sort of psychic or whatever, which Nick, who's designing Big Damn Dryden, the role-playing game, gave me a bunch of hell when I announced it, because I had told him that there weren't psychic abilities in our world. And then I went, oh, except for this faster-than-light communication that organic spaceships have. But other than that, I do not sound like I'm bullshitting at all. All right, so Kitty, what's going on?
So I've been working on my story, on my characters, but I'm also working on my timeline, and I need a little bit of information for that. Sure. Do you all have any idea the time difference between Dawn's story and Damien's story? Like how, a week, a month, 10 minutes?
Well, based on everything that Joel said before, I was going on the idea that the battle lasted roughly somewhere around 2 weeks.
Okay.
And my story starts like right in the middle of that, so like a little over a week has passed when I start the action in the story.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, mine would be right at the first, so.
Right, and Eugene's also happens at the first. So we're saying it's going to be about 2 weeks from the time that hell starts to break loose until humans lose control and the Europan is flying in space.
Okay. One thing that... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So when the end of Dawn's story, when the ship hits the building, the cooling plant, something?
Yeah.
Is that when the battle starts? Like, right that moment, all hell breaks loose? Or is there, like, a time period where people are like, what? Do all of the Europan attack right after that?
I feel like that the Europan's attack is actually really very coordinated. And that's in part from the conversation or the story that Dawn sent, or not Dawn, that Dan sent this morning, that makes it clear that the Europan's been working on this for a long time. And also we know that once he gets off planet, he has other places he wants to go because of Tracy's story. So thinking about, you know, if you want to attack an opponent and you've got a lot of time to plan, you probably plan to overwhelm them. Right? You wouldn't schedule yourself a protracted war if you could avoid it. You'd like to surprise the hell out of everybody and have it be over before anybody could figure out what's going on. So from that perspective, I think that probably by the time Dawn's character is flying into the cooling event, we've got hell on our hands.
Okay, cool.
Right, that very quickly, once the Europan starts to move, a whole lot of pieces start to move at the same time.
Exactly. That's kind of along with where I was dealing with, that it is kind of like a hive mind. Everything is connected at once. And the Europan, my idea is that the Europan, it's such an ancient organism that it can think beyond any kind of human. Like it's got the brain power of like over 1 billion humans. It can see things and detect things that humans could never do. So there's really, unless the humans had absolutely massive military presence, which they won't have, there's no way that they could be. I mean, it's like you say, it'll be all coordinated all at once. Everything. I mean, it's like a few hundred ants trying to outsmart an exterminator. They may run out and try to attack it, but the exterminator has everything in place, and they're just going to go right to their doom.
Now, having said all that, I think that there's also the probability that there would be humans who didn't get detected for a long time, or who managed to hide, or secondary attacks that came from Earth, or maybe the Jupiter cloud colony will launch a surprise attack later or something. None of which will be very effective, because Eugene is spot on that the Europan just thinks on a scale that it would take an entire human planet, and we could never agree well enough to pull it off. So once the Europan decides to act, it's over, and over pretty quickly. But that doesn't mean that we don't get interesting little side stories or tidbits or unexpected challenges. For example, flying your airplane into a air vent on a nuclear reactor could certainly set the Europan back, although it would probably equally set the human back. I had this very interesting idea that I think is unfortunately probably catastrophic to the storyline we've established. But what if the Europan had some way to boil all the ice and just let the humans drown? Just turn it into a liquid ocean for a week, right? I'm tired of humans on this planet. I'm going to raise the whole thing to 130 degrees Celsius and just wait till they all drown.
You could be part of that.
People treading water. What's that?
That could be part of it. That could be one small facet of it. One small.
There could be places where the Europan's main attack is thermal. All of the cities that are attached to the underside of the ice, he could just boil the ice. And let whole cities sink. That could be an element that somebody mentioned, sort of in passing. Well, we lost all of the undersea cities on the first day because the Europan boiled them. I mean, I don't know. Somebody should feel free to
volcano.
Yeah, he could. There's no reason not to postulate that he has that ability. He didn't attack that city. He set a volcano under it and left.
You mentioned about small stories, little survivors. That kind of reminds me of in the movie Aliens, where we had the female character nuke the little girl. I mean, she technically should not have survived. I mean, she was completely surrounded by these monsters.
Right.
Yet, for whatever reason, she was able to outsmart them. So I think stories like that, would work. Or just have these people which they're just they look or they seem so helpless that the Europan just doesn't, for a while at least, doesn't focus on them, because it focuses at least initially on the big threats like the military and stuff.
Right, not priority targets. Yeah, absolutely. So I spoke with Tracy this afternoon, and she was working on her Europan story. One of the things that's interesting that she's doing is her character is accidentally attached to the mind of the Europan through the circumstances of her birth, and she doesn't understand what's happening. And one thing that Tracy said that was interesting was, and it's a good point, because humans are limited to less than faster than light travel, it would take a while, because they're limited to the speed of their spaceships, they can't just instantly transmit messages. It would be a while before word got out, at least to the smaller systems, that Sol had been attacked, that the events on Europa had happened. And Tracy's character sees undersea combat scenes that she thinks are in the future or happening on her planet or something, and she's actually seeing what's going on Europa. So I thought it was a really kind of cool moment, where we've got this character going, the whole world, there's this huge battle, and everybody's going, there's no battle here, and come to find out she's seeing the things that you guys are narrating. So maybe she'll see the boiling of undersea cities or something. Anyway, it was just kind of a cool moment. Well, so what I want to do from here is facilitate whatever the six of you need. I think Dan's kind of done. He's in Kyrgyzstan, and he sent us Kyrgyzstan. Damien, Eugene, can you say it correctly for me? You said it correctly. Kyrgyzstan. He's in Kyrgyzstan, and he works under heavy security restraints, and I think that the story he sent us is his participation. I think he's done and gone. So what I want to do for the five of you who remain is be the most useful that I can. What do you guys need? How do I support you? Do I call you every day? Do I schedule meetings like this or leave you all alone? Do I get you guys started sending emails back and forth to each other and stay the hell out of it? Tell me how to take care of you so that you produce the best that you can do.
Well, I'm looking forward to that map. I think it would be nice
Awesome.
to have everybody.
Awesome.
Okay, yeah, map would be good.
Now, I think that that's sort of a surface map, and then you all can talk about, the cities that are down underneath. Dawn introduced this very interesting idea that close up to the surface you get slums, and the further in you go, the more elegant the cities become. Those are all things you guys can talk about or sort out, but I agree a map really helps me get oriented.
And I like that idea that the wealthy people being sort of at the bottom, because you think about it, that means they're going to be the ones who get screwed first. The wealthy people are going to be right in front. They're going to be right in the line of fire.
Yeah, that's wonderful. There's a certain kind of Robin Hood element to the Dryden experiment. We may be out to screw the rich and save the poor. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. that is I thought a really awesome element that Dawn added, and it makes sense too because close to the surface, gamma rays are going to get through and other radiation from space, and you would like to live further down in the ice where it's insulated, or maybe down in the ocean where it's very beautiful if you could afford to. So, yeah, absolutely. And then when the terror comes, it rises from the bottom. That's great. All right. So an email from Damien with that map is highly valued by folks. What else is considered useful?
I think
Go ahead.
If you don't mind, Joel, I think if we could keep doing these regularly and just make sure everybody has a place to meet up,
Okay.
I think that would be really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm totally comfortable with that. I don't want to feel at all oppressive or like I'm writing people and going, you got to be at the meeting on Wednesday. But if you're feeling the benefit out of it and like getting back together to talk, we can totally do that. So schedule another meeting. Is this time good for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good for me, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the emails. Is there any place where all the emails are listed?
I have all of them. We posted them all last time we were here. My next question was actually going to be, I think I have writing samples from 4 of the stories now. Would you guys feel comfortable with and enjoy seeing the samples that I've got? I could send you, maybe 200 or 300 words from the start of the stuff that Eugene sent me and the start of stuff that Damien sent me, and Tracy and Dan. So we could actually take a look at samples from 4. Would people enjoy that? Would that be a positive growing experience for folks?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Very
That would
good.
be
Yeah,
great.
that'd be good.
Very good. Okay.
And feel free to send out my outline.
Oh, I have that. Do I have that?
Yeah, I sent you. It was just like a 1-paragraph outline for the story.
Okay. I'll put Dawn's outline in there because I put it in a special place with a big flag on it that said Dawn's outline is right here. Sorry about that, Dawn. I'll find it.
I'll email it to you.
Okay. Well, I'm sure I have it. You might go ahead and send it to me again. I can just sort through my email and find it. As a matter of fact, I know that I have it because I know the outline of your story. So I must I must have read it at some point. I must have it. All right. But if you would send it to me again, that would make it easier. So I'll send an email out, and then everybody will also have everybody's email address because I'll just put everybody on the 2 line. All right.
And there's one little correction I'd like to make. My storyline, it does start at the beginning, but actually, to a certain extent, it goes to the entire event. It just looks, it's like little flashes. It's sort of a broad narrative. Obviously, that means that some of the details, the individual things, I can't focus on, but it's a broad narrative from start to finish.
You know, we'll have to see what it looks like when we actually have it in hand, Eugene. But I kind of have this idea that what we may do is kind of switch periodically to the Europan's perspective. So sort of tell someone's story and then a part of yours, and then someone's story and then a part of yours. I think that there's maybe a kind of a nice narrative flow there. You know, instead of having a commentator come in on the side, switch into your storyline for a while and live it from the Europan's perspective. I don't know that that will work, but the way you describe it, it sounds like maybe, you know, we start with your blurb about the nightmarish rise out of the dark, and then we cut to Dawn's story, and then we cut back to whatever the nightmare is doing, and then we cut over to Damien's story. You know, I think it may be that there's a kind of a logical process there that we can follow. We'll have to read text to know it, but I think it feels strong or feels likely. Okay, so then from my perspective, at some point, and we're not there yet, we'll kind of go, okay, this is the shape. And when we do that, I'll come back and I'll talk about what we're going to do to promote the book and when we think we can release the book. And it's really very straightforward. At that point, I think that we're pretty set that we have 6 authors. But I'll send a contract out to each one of you that talks about whatever. We go 50%. We go net profit, 50% to Dryden House, 50% to the authors, and we'll have to split out 50% divided by 6 authors, and there's math. But we'll do that math, and we'll talk to everybody about what that means. And we will go to print, and we'll go to EPUB both. And we use Smashwords, so when we go to EPUB, that goes to Kindle and Moby and several of the other little guys. I think Kobo and Moby are the same thing. I'm not sure. And we'll talk about how many advanced reader copies we're going to send out and who we're going to send them to. And we'll do all of that. But I'm kind of not talking about that stuff, not because I don't know how we do it, but just because I really don't know how far we are from a story. You know, Eugene is not going to be writing a lot for another 2 weeks, and I haven't seen Dawn's story yet, and or Kitty's story yet. So we're still kind of in that growth phase where you just kind of, you know, you water the plants and you leave them in the sun and wait for them to bear fruit. But at some point here in the next month or whatever, we'll kind of reach this point where we're like, guys, we've got a book. Let's talk about how to produce a book. And that'll be sort of a logical rollover. So I just want to mention, you know, we are headed for some of those more formal kind of things and getting into production. We just need to make sure that we grow it before we try to harvest it, right? So, all right. So the takeaways that I'm going to go is that we want to continue to schedule these meetings. They are useful for us. I'm going to send writing samples out to everybody so that then at the same time everybody will get the emails. And Damien is going to produce this with a kind of a hybrid map.
All right.
Now, one of the things that I almost never do is I almost never print in color because it effectively doubles your manufacturing cost. But if that map ends up something that we like and we're interested in, maybe we could do a black and white version of it and have it included in the book. The only thing that I've ever committed to doing in color is the role-playing game because it's a role-playing game and we had to do it. But if we decide that we really like that map and it will help people stay oriented as we shift author to author, then maybe we can talk about a black and white version. So just have that in the back of your mind.
As far as the map goes, since there's actually some interest from other people, I think I'm going to take a little more time. I was going to send out something tonight, but it would be very crude. So
Okay.
I'm going to take a little extra time, and then hopefully by tomorrow night I'll have something a little more substantial to send to people.
Fabulous.
So I think, you know, that'd be better than just throwing out any random thing right now.
Oh, I've got a one thing. Have you? I don't know, but have you guys has anyone settled on a cover yet for the book?
If you look out on the Dryden WordPress site, drydenexperiment.wordpress.org or whatever it is, Gavin Revitt proposed a cover that I really liked. We wouldn't have to go with that cover, but Gavin works for me, so I don't have to pay him for it. Well, I do pay him, but I don't have to pay someone separately. So I've done things before to try to pay artists, like include them in the profit share when I didn't have the cash to just buy an image that I wanted outright. And since Gavin works for me, he'll be paid as he's paid through me rather than have to include him. But if we did want to talk about something else on the cover, or folks were not particularly fond of that cover, we could look at something else. It was something that he put up on his own when we found out we were starting the project, and I really liked it. So,
Okay.
but give me feedback. We pulled the cover. Don Van Osdal got the cover that he had built for Lorelei You'll Never Die pulled because we ended up doing a rewrite on the book and it didn't fit anymore. So we can talk about that as we go, but do take a look. It is out there on the page that we put up for this project. So, all right, other questions from folks, other things we want to talk about. I must be going very just the stunned silence. Everyone is like, my God, we're working on this most amazing project. All right. Is it useful to you guys to chat right now about stories and plots and things, or do folks feel like they'd like to get on with their evenings and check their emails and see what's coming next?
I wouldn't mind talking. I would turn off my video and get something to eat. I'd bring that back, but I wouldn't mind talking. No.
All right. Do other folks feel like carrying on the conversation? Maybe what we should do is just sort of declare it over and stop the broadcast, and then if folks want to hang out and chat, they can, and if you feel like you're done for the night, you can go. I'll start working on putting the email together while while Eugene goes and gets dinner, and anybody that's still here will chat, and if you're done, you're done. How's that?
Sounds great.
All right, awesome, everybody. I'm going to turn off the broadcast. This is an exciting project. I'm really pleased with how it's going. I don't have any concerns at this time. We work in a very friendly, laid-back style, and the number one thing that I want to make sure is that I'm being as effective for you guys as I can. So please, if you need me, if I'm not giving you what you need, talk to me. Damien, it's wonderful to hear your voice and see your face. Absolutely, if you'd like to hang around and just kind of chat and get to know me, and I get to know you and get to know everybody else, you're welcome to. But if you need to go get dinner, you got to go get dinner. So, all right, I'm going to kill the broadcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.